In documenting what happened, I suppose I have to cover what happened with Dónal Quigley, or Solicitor Dónal Quigley. I've covered some of the things he said about Ruth Cannon, but I haven't really covered the collusion or willingness to see me see fraud committed against me, and to see me damaged with bad faith, abuse of process, malicious prosecution. In fact, he went so far, Solicitor Dónal Quigley went so far as to enable it. I wasn't allowed to take the stand for my bail hearing, which is puzzling. I wasn't put on or asked any questions. So essentially, Dónal Quigley, and it's recorded, he sat there knowing that perjury was being committed, yet obstructed me being put on the stand at my open bail hearing to answer some of the fraudulent accusations. However, afterwards, Solicitor Dónal Quigley told me that the Inspector Kieran Murphy case, they had no intention of going forward with it after 2 or 3 years. It was, as Inspector Kieran Murphy and the Associated Guards, no one wanted their career linked to it. Dónal Quigley then told me that it was unlikely Ruth Cannon would go forward. Not unlikely. He said it was in the realms of not going to happen in the 2 or 3 years it would take to drag out, and that she wouldn't attend court. As I've mentioned, as he cut several derisory comments about Ruth Cannon's career and said that, it was sort of unheard of that someone had been a junior counsel for so long, and that he understood that she was eyeing to become senior counsel and that she wouldn't want her career attached to it. So essentially, Dónal Quigley told me that in the case of Inspector Kieran Murphy, it was attempted murder, or to terrorise me into shutting up and not taking cases against his colleagues in Kevin Street. Clear obstruction, perversion, intimidation, menace, and attempted murder via an E or U or A or U armed SWAT team. This also includes the attempt to lie to me about the law and pervert the case that his colleagues have, where you can see in the last phone call with Inspector Kieran Murphy, he blurts that, Garda Brian Gillen had organised something like 17 colleagues, or a large group of them, to commit perjury and file false statements of evidence. In the same conversation, amongst other things, besides lying to the law and trying to tell me a false interpretation of the law to damage my case and how I represented myself, Inspector Kieran Murphy admitted that the contact he'd initiated with me was inappropriate and shouldn't have been happening. And, then there's the Ruth Cannon case, which, again, I was told wouldn't go forward. However, that was just taken to obstruct civil action against Ruth Cannon. Civil action that Ruth Cannon had goaded and taunted in some strange narcissistic rage on Twitter. So I was told directly that I was being the target of legal fraud and obstruction and brutality, and that none of the cases were going to go forward. But I was going to be tortured by these people. Tortured with bail conditions that were incredibly harsh, tortured with fraudulent cases, and that I could, very well, again, face the fact that the guards were going to withhold and destroy or otherwise hide evidence from the court, like they had in the previous case, which they lost. And when I asked Dónal Quigley to move with some, to recognise my disability or my medical papers, he ignored it. He ignored my constitutional rights. He ignored my civil rights. And he was happy to watch me starve and be destroyed by it. And seemed happy if the outcome led to suicide. He certainly had no interest in my well-being and didn't express any interest in my well-being. So upon that, when Dónal Quigley told me all of that, and I began to realise that there was no fair way forward. There would always be this vein of corruption, and solicitors like Dónal Quigley and Richard Young, who would do corrupt favours for the guards, and or Ruth Cannon. Like, as we can see, Andrew Bradley of the Law Library doing it now. And, you know, what can you do in that situation? I'm being destroyed, and there's this ghoulish, gangster-obsessed solicitor gleefully telling me that it'll drag out for 2 to 3 years, although he admits that it'll go nowhere and is just being done to try and drive me to suicide or destruction. And Dónal Quigley knew that my medicine was going to be withheld and I was running out of it. Dónal Quigley had admitted repeatedly that he knew Ruth Cannon was committing perjury, but he let it happen. So, you know, at that point, I had to fire Dónal Quigley because who would want that, supposedly, representing them in their best interests, which he had failed to do on a large scale. That he failed to do it for Ruth Cannon, while also absolutely being scathing about her and her career to a point of slander, or professional slander, is the other puzzling side. But maybe it's the wig omerta of law or something. But yeah, I think being told directly to my face by Dónal Quigley that the whole thing was essentially fraud, that designed to obstruct PIAB and to obstruct civil proceedings, and that these people ultimately didn't want their careers connected to it, Inspector Kieran Murphy and Ruth Cannon, that a panic began to set in, and the realization that that these people would be happy to force me into penury and debt to help Inspector Kieran Murphy, his colleagues, Garda Brian Gillen and Ruth Cannon. And, that's why Dónal Quigley was fired. And now that I can see this Andrew Bradley person from the Law Library doing it again for Ruth Cannon, that sort of fraud and obstruction, I've had to step up my attempts to document everything, because what else is there to do?